Welcome back to my channel, guys. It's my final day here in Madrid, Spain. Tomorrow I fly back to Miami, and I've been reflecting on this trip. So this will be kind of another rant video about some things that I've learned and things I'm going home with, thoughts that I'm going home with. I've been in Europe now for almost 6 weeks. This is the longest trip I've had in years. I've been working the whole time. I've been working from hotels in every city, which is how I was able to leave for so long, right? Because I don't have that many vacation days, but I'm so glad I did this trip. I highly recommend, if you work from home, doing this kind of thing, this nomadic experience for a few months, just to get away. And that was really my ultimate goal. I had this craving to get away and get a change of scenery. 2024 got off to a strange start for me. As some of you guys know, I've been documenting it on this channel. I got let go in 2024 from my previous job, and that totally screwed with my head. I had a falling out with a close friend, which also messed with my head. So I went into this new job feeling like I was on shaky ground, like a shaky foundation, but that I was hopefully starting to find stability again. And summers in Miami are unpleasant. It's super hot. It's a tropical climate. So you basically stay indoors the whole time. And I thought this is a perfect time for me to get away and to have a change of scenery, a change of pace, explore Europe, and feel hopefully a little bit more like re-inspired when I come back to Miami. And that's exactly how I feel. I feel like I got a shot in the arm that I needed, that I desperately needed. And I'm coming back home feeling excited to come home. And that doesn't always happen with vacation, right? I remember when I lived in New York City and I would go to a place like Miami with much nicer weather in the winter. I remember coming back, you know, late at night and it's cold in New York and thinking like, ugh, like I don't want to be here. So it's a great feeling to have that gratitude and that, honestly, even relief, I would say, of I want to come home. You know, I want the familiarity of my apartment and my routine and knowing where everything is. I'm coming back to Miami with a renewed sense of confidence in myself as it pertains specifically to the gay dating stuff. I mean, I make all these videos when I travel, gay travel in this city, that country, and I've had a few love affairs, we can say, in Europe. And it was exactly what I needed to remind myself of what I ultimately want from a partner, what I ideally would want from a relationship. Interestingly, before I left for Europe, I had a date with a guy who doesn't live in Miami, but he visits often. And we had been talking on and off for months because we had previously connected right as he was leaving Miami. We hadn't met. It was his last day, but he had said, next time I'm in town, I want to meet you. And in the interim, he would reach out here and there and check in, which I thought was very thoughtful. So I was really looking forward to meeting him. So right before I left for Europe, he was in Miami, we met, and it was so disappointing because even though the date was fine and we got along well and we had a nice conversation, I didn't feel any intimacy. There was no chemistry beyond just like a friendship. I was into him, but I didn't feel that he was into me. For example, we were sitting across from each other on this date. I said, hey, you should come over. Like, you should sit next to me. Giving him the signal of, you know, I want that chemistry. Like, it's just, when you're on a date and you want to establish chemistry or intimacy, it's just nicer when you're sitting next to each other, right? Maybe that's the flirt in me. I don't know, the romantic in me. But he turned down my offer and was like, no, I'm good here. So immediately in my head, I thought, okay, I guess he's not that interested, because he has to know why, you know, he has to know that that's like a flirtatious invitation to come sit right next to me instead of across a table. But I thought, don't jump to conclusions. You know, some people don't like PDA. Also, there's the gay thing, right? Like, maybe he's discreet and doesn't feel comfortable showing intimacy with another guy. All good, right? Don't assume. But then after that, after we left that bar, we walked down this really cute path together. and there was nobody else in sight. And he even said out loud, "This is a really cute path." And I, again, the flirt in me, the romantic in me, I was like, yeah, it's perfect for a first kiss, isn't it? Hint, hint. So I'm like, this is his, I mean, come on, this is his shot now to redeem himself and make a move if he's remotely interested. And he went in for a kiss, but it felt so forced that I regretted initiating, that action. And so I thought, okay, I guess that's it. Like, he's just not that into me, and that's fine. But, disappointing after we've been talking for a while on and off. Of course, I keep it to myself. This is my inner monologue. And then as we separate, because his Uber has showed up, he goes, "Hey, next time I'm in Miami, we should try out this restaurant together." And he points at this restaurant. And I stupidly said out loud something like, "Oh, you and me?" I was shocked because I just assumed he wasn't into me. And he's like, yeah. And then he said, "Text me when you get home," which I thought was very thoughtful. I texted him when I got home. He texted back immediately after saying that it was great to meet me and that he enjoyed our conversation, blah, blah, blah. And I was so confused because it almost felt like a professional encounter. Like, we both enjoyed each other's company. There was a politeness both ways, but I felt zero romantic chemistry. And then when I got to Europe, he reached out to check in, and I thought, you know what, maybe I'm being too judgy. Maybe I'm making assumptions. Like, maybe I just need to be more patient and open-minded, that everybody moves at a different pace. And so to go back to the point of this video, that's why I'm so glad that I came to Europe, because European men operate differently. And I'm leaving this trip feeling re-inspired, because I did have a few love affairs in Europe, a few flings since I've been here the past 5 to 6 weeks. And it's just been so refreshing to feel that romantic energy that I crave. What's so ironic is that days after that guy who I had the date with in Miami texted me in Paris, when I got to Paris, I had a date with a guy in Paris. And similar thing happened where I instinctively sat across from him, and he immediately was like, "Come sit next to me." I realized in that moment that I instinctively sat across from him because I'm so conditioned to operate from the American point of view of, this is our first time meeting, I have to show up a certain way, I can't be too emotional, I can't be too sensitive, I can't be too romantic. And it was so refreshing to have him immediately be like, "Come sit next to me." What are the chances that that exact dynamic happens? There's another guy who I met in Paris who I had a really intense connection with, and he then had to leave Paris for work. I then continued with my trip in Amsterdam and then the south of France. And we discovered that we were going to be in Nice, in the south of France, at the same time for one night in common. So basically, right as he was arriving to Nice, I was leaving Nice. And before either of us left Paris, he had said, "I would love to see you in Nice that one night that we're both there." And I thought it was so sweet and, again, thoughtful and romantic to set that intention. I didn't take it too seriously, honestly, because I'm so used to, in Miami and just in the States in general, guys saying one thing and doing another. So I thought it was very sweet, but I didn't take it too seriously. I thought, weeks later when we're both in the south of France, let's see what happens. Let's see if he even remembers. And sure enough, as soon as I got to Nice, he reached out saying, "Hey, am I still going to see you later this week? I would love to see you." So we met up a second time on the opposite end of the country in the south of France. And we had a great time. And again, this romantic spirit was ignited in me that's always there, but it's kind of dormant, I feel, because of experiences like the date in Miami that I mentioned. So if it makes any sense, I feel like I'm coming back to Miami now with a different perspective of, oh, I'm allowed to want the things that I want. I'm allowed to have that date that I had in Miami and feel like, this is probably not a good fit because this guy isn't moving at the pace that I would want and doesn't have that same romantic interest. And maybe he is actually into me, or maybe he doesn't know what he wants, but I'm allowed to be selective when it comes to wanting that courtship and wanting a guy who's going to do what that guy in Paris did to say, hey, I want to see you when you're going to be at the opposite end of the country, even though I might never see you again because you live on the other side of the globe. I'm not used to that in the States. Also, just the charm that I feel guys have greeted me with here. And it's not everybody, it's not universal. There's still jerks on apps. There's still guys who flake. There are guys who are inconsiderate. But generally, it is such a different world here in Europe. And it's given me a confidence boost in realizing, like, I'm not crazy. I really do live in a bubble, as I'm sure many of you guys relate to. American guys don't carry that same kind of romantic, courtship-oriented nature. And it's not just the States. I'm not trying to trash the States. I think there's other parts in the world where people view relationships maybe in a more practical way or in a more clinical way. But it felt so good to have that spark and that chemistry, and also the levity of it, right? Like, obviously I'm visiting, so there's a novelty factor, and you know that it's probably not going to lead to anything long term, but to have that lightness and not feel a pressure was really freeing and really liberating. This whole trip made me realize that at the end of the day, I'm probably most compatible with a European guy, which I think I've always known, but I don't get to be around that many European guys outside of Europe. And it just made me feel less crazy, less needy, based on the experiences that I've shared on this channel with dating and just like nonsensical stories that I try to tell you guys in a comical way, but deep down always bother me that I experience these unsavory things, because after a while, of course, I think any sane person is going to think, what am I doing to contribute to this? Like, why am I tracking this? Why do I keep having dates this way? The few guys that I met here in Europe, I had such a lovely time with them. And I thought, this is how it's supposed to be. This is how it's always supposed to be. So I want to carry this memory and this like newfound optimism that I'm feeling, this refreshed, rejuvenated energy that I'm feeling. I want to carry this with me back to Miami for as long as possible. I'm wondering if any of you guys relate to this, if it feels familiar or relevant in some kind of way. Let me know in the comments, and catch you next time when I'm back in the States.